It's all over social media. We've been seeing the fires that were sparked in Hollywood, how that Hollywood Hills began to caught on fire and then it went on as far as to the surrounding community. It's devastating. Many people have lost their homes worth millions, such a wonderful property as that. But now, I'm not making this video just to actually mock or maybe make fun of the fact, but I just want us to begin to trace this thing from where it began, because this seems to be a divine vindication. But I'll be showing you a video shooting. There's two sides of the story. We're going to be talking about both sides. But firstly, I believe that this is a divine vindication from God because of what just actually took place. So Hollywood, just about 2 days prior to the fires having started, they mocked God. It was live on camera. We still have this video I'm going to show you. So they mocked God on the 82nd Golden Globe Awards. They were held in Hollywood just in the start of this year, which is about 2 days before the fires broke out. So I just want you to see this video, and then I want you to also look at what happened after that.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us now, why? Why now? What took you so long? Anyway, it's time for our mid-show recap, and I'm here on the floor with all of my peers. Just go with it. And this is so exciting because everywhere you look, there's a fanning. Elle, Dakota, Peyton. The air is thick with the smell of signature fragrances and the lingering stench of ballroom salmon. Ballroom salmon is actually the name of Stanley Tucci's new cologne, now available at Buca di Beppo. So much has already happened in the first half, and the acceptance speeches have been on fire. Who got shouted out the most? Let's look at the numbers. All right, cast and crew are leading the way with 11 mentions. Moms are holding strong with 3 shout-outs. God, creator of the universe, 0 mention.
Just after they made out this statement, it was about 2 days later where the fire began to break out. And then when they began to mock God and all of that, the creator of the universe, we know that specifically this is our God. And then this just began to take place. Now, there's one house that survived. So I'm going to let you see that video at the end of this video. Toward the end of this video, you're going to be seeing that video of the one house that remained. How that the guy is weeping and glorifying God, that he doesn't understand how his fire remained. But you can tell that the guy actually does give respect and honor to God, and he does fear God in how he spoke, because people normally today, they don't just go on speaking about God like that. Now, the point that I want us to talk about, it is that this is seems to be a trend now. In our nations, there seems to be a mockery against God. What Paul says, he says that God cannot be mocked. Is whatever a man sows, that he will reap. Just after he says God cannot be mocked, whatever a man sows, that he will reap. I remember that just at a time ago, we were looking at something that took place where Brazil began to mock the cross and all of that, and then floods hit the entire area. It was bad. And then we were also looking at the same thing that took place with Paris. Paris began to also mock God, and then we know that a total shutdown of electricity that took place. It seems though that in our society today, God will not tolerate. God will not tolerate being mocked by anyone at this point. Now, this is beautiful for our part, because we don't need to defend him. He defends himself. This goes on to remind me again of an incident where God began to call Gideon in the book of Judges, and it says, "Go out and set my people free from the Midianites." And after God called him out, the Bible speaks to us how that he went down to burn down his father's image of Baal. And when he burnt it down, that the people in the community were very agitated. They came out to the father and said, "Hand us your son, we need to kill him because it destroyed the image of Baal." And the father, he spoke in a way that resonated and stuck with me for years concerning defending God in this issue. Now, we can't defend the gospel, but however God defends himself. Now, his nature, his integrity, he defends himself. but we do have a duty to defend the gospel. So the father, when he replied to them, he said, if Baal is God, let him fight him. So now that stays with me, and it stood with me for many years, that truly a true God would actually defend his very own integrity and name. So looking at Brazil, Paris, and all of these things, it tells us that God will defend himself as God. With Hollywood, they have been saying a lot of stuff about God, and they've been getting away with it. I have been so much agitated. I've been frustrated. There were many series that I remember that I just stopped watching, and a lot of movie actors that I just cut out because of Hollywood has a tendency of profaning God's name, Interestingly, do you know that they call themselves Babylon? And if you look into Babylon and you look into this history and the study of Babylon, now if you don't have any background concerning Babylon, just make sure that you watch my video concerning Christmas, the origin of Christmas, and as well as stay tuned for the Bible studies that I'll be doing that are coming in. We're going to be covering major doctrines of scriptures. So Babylon is one of the major doctrines we'll cover because it has such implications for end time prophecy. It's interesting. Now Babylon, it is actually the mother. The Bible calls her the mother. It's in Revelation 17:18. Calls her the city, the mother of all abominations, the kings of the earth. So Babylon was actually a city known for its perversion. Now, the source of every, occultism, belief system, idolatry, they all originated from Babylon. I made another video, I remember, where I spoke about the worship of the Queen of Heaven in South Africa and began to show you the source of where it began. All of this took place from Babylon. So if you look into the word, it has a dual meaning, but the meaning that resonates the most with me is that it is Bab El, which is gate to the gods. El like Elohim, Eli, God like El, El Roy and all of that. So if you look into Bab El, gates to the gods, so you realize that this is where some things such as constellations were made, what we call the constellations, the star signs, to actually be a gateway to the gods. People were doing that, and the New Age teachings and sciences, they all originated out of Babylon. It's interesting that Hollywood calls themselves Babylon. There's even a movie they made in 2022 called Babylon that stars both Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, and others. So if you look into that movie, it actually celebrates the true life history of the beginning of the showbiz industry, Hollywood, how it was established from the silent movies up until to this day. So they were showing the past of how Hollywood became a superpower and was. This is interesting that when they have to show us the past and the life of Hollywood, they have to call that movie or title it Babylon. And hence again, I want you to look at this video where in one of the, I think it was the Oscars or stuff, but they said this about themselves. So they have actually acclaimed and accepted the term that they are Babylon and that they are godless. I want you to listen to this.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here tonight.
Good evening, godless sodomites.
What are you doing?
I'm bringing the truth, John. We're in Hollywood, the belly of the beast.
You can't just read the prompter?
I'm reading the prompter in here. You can read that pablum.
Award show banter is not pablum. Reality television celebrates the human condition. By illuminating what's extraordinary in the ordinary person.
It warps the minds of our children and weakens the resolve of our allies.
The results are often dramatic and always unexpected. We're here to honor achievement in that category.
By giving you a golden idol to worship. Kneel before your God, Babylon!
Media has such a strong power. Media is so powerful. There are many things that in our society we did not compromise for. We stood up against, and then they were unacceptable. When film and television took place, it began to actually portray specific pictures and stuff that we began to accept, and then they became part of our society. Let me give you an example. There was a time when we used to watch Generations, and when we watched Generations, there came this moment where there was Mbanjwa and Jason. You remember at that time, it was harder for our communities to accept homosexuality. Like, it was something else. If there was a homosexual in a community, that person would be famous all over. Which, brother Abanbani, is this and that. And so this was actually known. And then they came out in Generations, introduced Mbanjwa and Jason. We kept on trying to resist it. I wasn't a person who watched Generations. I never watched it, but I remember that. So a lot of people with this, they tended to be angry, but they kept on watching. So everything that you keep on actually, standing on, compromising on, you end up acclimatizing to a point that it came out to be a norm. We remember about intersection. So the point that I'm doing is that I'm trying to show you how that the power of television is. First thing they do is they begin to portray certain ideas through television, and the next thing is our community begins to accept them. How that the idea of feminism, it came out and then was spreaded via social media, televisions, and then the movies that came out and all of that. They awoke, Hollywood awoke. Again, is Hollywood behind it all. Boom. At the end of the day, you discover now that we're beginning to accept these things into our communities. So because now we feel that they are normal. So in a type of a way, Hollywood has been a major, satanic strategy to attacking our generations and even us in terms of our gateways, what we see and what we hear. So it is so good that we see God standing up for his name, whilst we also stand up for God's name. Because I did tell you in the beginning of this year that what I'm going to stand for to condemn anything that deals against God's standard or God's way. Because we need to condemn these things. Because I said to you, silence means agreeing. So we're not going to be silent about these things that are happening. We're going to condemn them and we're going to stand for the truth. That is what we are to be in this moment. So my wife and I as well, God has been speaking to me. I think last year it was the fourth time God telling me, go into the filming industry. So I'm going to be part of that, where I want to bring out gospel-based type of stories where we centered in terms of kingdom principles, because marriages are under attack now. If you look into the things that we actually watch, there's no value no more. There's no principle of morality behind the love stories that we see. Masculinity is under attack because of, if masculinity is under attack, leadership is under attack. Now, a lot of people are coming, others are saying, no, this thing actually, it's a fire that started by someone because of they are trying to divert a specific attention. It might not be God's judgment on Hollywood. I want you to see the second story. It's by a lady, they based on a lady called Ali Carter. She was one of the people that used to be kidnapped. Apparently, this thing of human trafficking, Hollywood is stuck on, we've seen the P. Diddy list, the Epstein Island list, how that the big superpower, Hollywood people and all of that are behind these things. Now, I want you to listen to the story and see.
The world is going to crumble when they see this next arrest. In the meantime, there's going to be deaths, distractions, and fires to hide evidence. Watch for it, ask questions, demand answers. You know who's on those flight logs. You do. You know who should be arrested. You all do. You know that laptop from hell is real. You know that the black book is real. You know Ghislaine Maxwell's customers are who everybody is watching in the everyday news, including those.
So therefore, who is this lady that you just saw who began to speak about the fires sparked and all of that to divert the arrest of this most powerful second individual? Now, I want her to explain to us who she is through this video that's following.
One time he locked me in containers with his shipment of kids. There were kids in there that didn't speak English. There were kids that were sick and that were already dying. There were babies. There were babies that were 6 years old. And I'll never forget them just crying, and everybody was just staring at them. Everybody was just staring at each other. Nobody knew whether or not to move. I was freaked out. And I got up and I held her. And they opened the truck and they took her from me. Because they said she was already sick. And they killed her. Her name was Bailey. There are kids in there from Africa, from Mexico.
So you just heard sad stories concerning Ali Carter and the things she has experienced, and we're looking into what has been happening, how that Bob P. Diddy under arrest with all of these things, and it has been bad. It has been wild, and it seems to be going wild. There's so much exposure that God is bringing out to these industries. We praise the Lord. Now, the thing is, if you look into this story, you will realize whether we come and we say, would someone spark the fires to actually try to protect or maybe bring out a diversion concerning what's happening. The key point that I want to show you is this. Do you know that even in the Bible times, God sometimes, most of his judgment actually came through an individual. It wasn't sometimes like they were supernatural, like rains coming like it happened in Brazil. But in many cases, like when God judged Jerusalem, he brought on the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, to actually take them into captivity. So God can actually use the unrighteous people to vindicate in many cases. In another example, we have where Jesus was speaking in the Gospel of Luke 19, and then Jerusalem wasn't welcoming as king when he entered through a donkey. And look at the pronunciation he said, Jerusalem, how long that I tried to actually gather you to myself, but now that every time I send prophets you stone them. He says in the Gospel of Matthew. And it says in Luke 19 from verse 40 to 44, he says that now, because now you have not seen this your day of visitation, therefore now nations will surround you, around, and then destroy you with a fire. Now, what the Lord spoke, that happened 38 years later after he declared this in 70 AD. When it happened in 70 AD, it was when Titus of Rome came with his father Vespasian and then surrounded Jerusalem, destroyed its walls and all of that, and burnt the city and everyone with fire. Over 1.5 million Jews, young children and old women died because of this. So Jesus said, because of you have actually rejected your day of visitation. Now, I'm a person that believes in the message of grace, but however, a lot of people who believe in the message of grace, when they want to see scriptures that speak about God's judgment, they want to brush them off or mis-explain them. I won't do that. I will let the word be the word. As much as God is a God of love and there's grace, but I will tell you one thing, God is a just God. He's not fair, he's not unfair, he's a just God. Wherever righteousness is or justice is, sin has to be punished. Now, this is the same thing that we see. Therefore, in that time when Jerusalem was faced judgment, it was by fire in 70 AD that destroyed it. So I'm reminded about the same situation here, the fire in Hollywood. It doesn't matter who started it, but still, that person might have been an instrument in God's hands. It doesn't mean that person is righteous as an instrument, like God used Nebuchadnezzar was unrighteous to bring on judgment. And the same with the story of Jerusalem. It was the nation of Rome. They were not righteous. They didn't worship God. They worshipped idols, but they became instruments in the hands of God in bringing out, judgment, carrying it out. So what I'm saying now is we've come to points in our lives where there's so much compromise. We gotta stand for the truth. I know it's gonna be bitter, and a lot of people are gonna hate the truth, but at the end of the day, we have to come back and stand for the truth. Let's stand for the family structure. Let's stand for the principles of the word of God. Let's stand for God's moral standards. Let's stand to defend the purity of marriage. Let's protect the word of God in order to protect our communities and our children. I hope that this video blesses you, and if it blessed you, please comment and like. And now please show me your views and the things you have actually heard and discovered concerning this thing that has been happening. And lastly, I am going to show you the video of the guy, the only house that remained, following from here. Bless you.
I shouldn't be crying because my entire block is burnt down, but God saved my house. Why are all of my neighbors, why are they in the middle of two burnt down blocks? There's one house standing, and that's mine.